Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Just getting started. Hey, Jennifer's here. Hi. How are you, Jennifer? It's good to see you. Today, we're talking about ways to heighten our intuition and have some exercises. Welcome, everybody. Just getting plugged in here. All right. Yep, I'm on TikTok tonight. I just got on. Hey, Nicole. Hi, Sylvia. How's everybody? Got everybody on YouTube. Hey, Tara. How are you? Welcome in. How's everybody's week? Happy Monday. Happy Moon Day. How's it going? Say hi. Tell us where you're joining from. Hey, Lola. Welcome back, everybody. You finally made it. Well, I'm glad you made it, Jennifer. How's it going over there? Are you sweltering in the heat? It's starting to get hot here too. We had this rainy May and June. Now it's just going to get super hot, I think. Hey, Nicole, you're back over here on TikTok. How are you, Lola? Anyhow, I've got two screens I'm looking at, so I'm trying to adjust this one a little better. All right, well, welcome everybody. Tonight we're going to be talking about the different clair abilities and intuition and some exercises on how you can heighten your intuition. And hopefully my TikTok doesn't crash. It's giving me some weird signal. Okay. Hi, Sweet Pea. How are you? If something happens on the TikTok, we're on YouTube too. So, and also the replays will be available after. You've been well, doing lots of meditation and self-healing. Oh, good, Lola. That sounds good. It sounds like the perfect time to do that stuff because we're right in the height of summer. And today we'll talk about how we can all heighten our own intuition and the different abilities that each one of us are born with. Hello from Mesa, Arizona. Yes, it's so hot and muggy. Hopefully monsoons will kick in. Oh, I know. I hope you have a big monsoon. I love the monsoon season in Arizona because that's when everything kind of cools down after that intense heat that we get. Good evening, April. How are you tonight? Let me just turn it down a little. Okay. All right. So how's everybody? Hello, Shakan 1930. How are you? Okay. Thanks for sharing the live and joining us tonight. I know it's Monday. Good evening from Texas. How's the weather in Texas? It's probably hot too, right? I think we're going to get this like huge TikTok is freezing today. And I keep getting this weird message, so I'm not sure how the TikTok is going to go. But if we get somehow disconnected on TikTok, we're on YouTube. Been some crazy energy lately. Oh, man. We're in that intense fire. And that's why I wanted to talk about intuition tonight and something we've talked about before. April says it's hot and humid. Yeah, it's hot, it's humid, the energy is intense. And I've been talking about the fire and how we're going from the old fire to the new fire. And the thing is that right now, the thing you have to remember is your intuition will never fail you. Don't doubt yourself. Don't doubt your intuition because it will never fail you. Lola says, I heard the globe had an all-time record high heat this last week. Yes. I'm sure it did not. It will not. You're right, Nicole. Your intuition will never fail you. And that heat is activating. It's distressing. It's overwhelming. Actually, the heat can bring out some of the worst and the best in people. It's something about it that just like swelters and brings all this energy up. Some people get super negative. Some people try to cool off and find the positive. And there's a balance that has to be found when it's really hot, humid, muggy, fires, all the things that go along with this intense heat that we're experiencing. And, I don't know if those of you who follow the Schumann resonance and all that stuff, it's really been off the chart. So the energy of the planet is heating up, it's warming, it's intense. There's a lot of challenges with the heat, like I said, like the fire element, and it's about what is your relationship with fire? Fire is powerful, and fire can be very destructive, but it can be also very beneficial. And it's all about how are we utilizing the element of fire? How are we respecting it? How are we honoring it? And how are we balancing that element of fire with the element of water, right? You like fire? If for you, it flares up your joint pains, full body. Yes, exactly. You're going to have some full body pains. And some people, their body loves hot, loves fire. It thrives on fire. And that could be your main element, even in your natal chart. And so you feel very comfortable with fire. But then when we have too much fire in our body, it is anger, and it can be really destructive to ourselves. And so it's really about like how to balance those elements of fire and water. And it's natural because in your body, when you get too hot, you sweat because the water is literally like, okay, we need to cool down. We're too hot. Let's sweat it out. Let's bring some water. So that's a good way to begin our topic today because, yeah, it's getting hotter. Also, what comes with the heat is a lot of times those bugs like mosquitoes and things like that. And so that can also put a damper on our energy fields. And we really have to stay in that neutral place. And some days we'll really get it right. And some days, we're a work in progress. I come to bed, eyes. You're not late. You're just on time. It seems to make me exhausted easily. Yeah, and it does. It's exhausting because imagine all that fire is pumping through your body. You're like, that's why we have the fans. Also, the element of air helps because the breeze comes. That breeze comes and blows us off. And then we have sweat. And so it's always a work in progress, right? And that's okay. I think that's the main element we have to remember on our spiritual journeys is that we're never going to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. We're not going to get it right all the time. Our intuition can also sometimes, be tricky because if we don't trust our intuition and we, doubt ourselves, then we can override our intuition. Our intuition will say, go left and we'll go right. And then later we'll be like, oh, I wish I would have went left. But we needed that lesson. We needed to go that different direction so that we could remember, always listen to that intuition. Always listen, because that intuition will never fail you. And so today what I'm talking about is intuition. What are the basic senses that we're born with, and some tools and ways you can heighten them and try to see which sense is stronger than another. Okay. So in the teachings, we have 5 fingers. We are a 5-fingered being. Most people have 5 fingers on one hand and 5 fingers on the other. And so the 5 fingers represent our 5 senses that we have, seeing, tasting, smelling, what is that? Feeling, all the tasting, sorry, all the senses. You have those 5 senses, but then in between those 5 senses are those other senses that, we call clair abilities, right? And we're going to talk about those clair abilities. So if you have 5 fingers, you also have 5 intuitive senses. Okay, so let's start with that. And those 5 senses, as you see, you have 5 that are seen, and then you have 5 that are not seen, right? The space in between. And the space in between are those clair abilities that we talk about. Sweet Pea says, kind of like if a child has a full tantrum and it wears them out afterwards, or even some adults if they get too worked up or fiery. Yeah, and children are the perfect example of that fire element because they're just so natural. They'll flare up and then it'll be done. And so part of what I always talk about with my clients is that we don't fully express our emotions as we get to be adults, and then they become trapped, because what happens is that we'll feel something and then we'll monitor it and we'll shove it down. But whereas when we were children, when we had an emotion, we'd go full on with the emotion. We'd go, how a child, they start like, and then they like go to full blown, emotion. That's the full range of an emotion. Is it starts off real soft and then it builds, and then they're back to doing what they're doing, and they're fine, they're laughing, they're playing, and then the emotion doesn't get trapped in them. They don't go on to be adults and have all this trapped feeling. And then we hit a certain age, and then everything gets stuffed down. Everything, and that age can vary because depending on your upbringing and whatnot. But that's a good point. So although I can't imagine imagine people doing that as an adult, like if you're at a workplace or something and just but yeah. Thank you for the invite. Hope everyone has a great week. Much love. See you next time. Okay, what is your advice on accessing the visual clair? Yeah, that's perfect segue to what we're talking about. So you have the 5 fingers, you have the 5 senses, and the one that most people talk about is the clairvoyance, right? What are the clairs? You guys are right in alignment. We're going to segue into that. So the first ability that we talk about is the sense of seeing, and that's what most people think of when they think of the classic psychic. The classic psychic ability is, what do you see? Even when you go for a reading, a lot of people say, well, what do you see for me, right? What do you see? And that's exactly what it means. It's the sense of seeing, but seeing with that third eye, right? The visions, the prophecies, the classic things. And not everybody is really strong in clairvoyance. Most of the time when I talk to people, they're more strong with clairsentience, which is the sense of feeling. But the clairvoyance is the sense of seeing, okay? And this is like, sometimes people see it with visions, like something just passing through. And some people, it's in the dream time where it's more prevalent when you're not awake and you're sleeping and you see visions and things that come true later. Or your intuition might flash something in front of you and say, look at this, go research that, go meet this person, go do this thing. And it's all through the sense of seeing. Now, one of the ways you can strengthen your sense of seeing, and this is, you have to be in a safe place, like a room or a place that you can navigate. Or in the ancient times, what they would do is they would go to a cave or the wilderness, and they would go with a guide, and they would blindfold themselves. Or if it's like pitch black, they would just be in the pitch black. But then they would take mud and they would put it on their body to heighten their senses. And I know it's strange. You wouldn't probably blindfold yourself and put mud all over your body. But the mud prevents, any kind of insects or infections, or like if you scrape yourself or something. So the mud is a protectant, but also it's to heighten the intuition. It makes you like feel everything around you because you're in the pitch dark. So if you want to enhance your clairvoyance, if you're clairvoyant and you want to really see more clearly, you have to go to the darkness and you have to blindfold yourself or be in the pure darkness. And then, sometimes the oracles, they would go into a dark room and they would have a mirror. And then they would stare in the mirror, and then their visions would activate, and they would see things, and they would notice things, and then, you know, they would get stronger and stronger and stronger. And usually if you're going to do that technique, you might start off with 10 minutes, because you have to get really familiar with the darkness, because what will happen when you're in the darkness is all your other senses will heighten. Your sense of hearing will heighten, your feeling will heighten, your taste will heighten, everything will heighten, because now you're in the dark. And the body's natural mechanism is, when it's in the dark, it like everything else heightens. Even when you're driving in the dark, you're walking in the dark, anytime you're doing anything in the dark, your senses heighten. And so this is how you develop that clairvoyance, that sense of seeing, is in the darkness. And so one way you can do it safely is put blindfold in a room that's relatively, safe, no sharp edges, nothing, and just try to navigate that room using your other senses, using your sense of hearing, using your sense of feeling, I don't know, tasting. You can taste your walls, I don't know. But you can go around the room and just, see how you navigate the room. Guess what different objects are through using your senses. So that's one way you can really heighten your clairvoyance. If you want to go into sense of seeing, then you have to take that away and have all the other senses, because then your inner sight will turn on. When the inner sight turns on, then that's that feeling. You know how people, when they're blind, naturally they rely on all the other senses? It's the same concept. But the ancient way was to go into a dark room and to stare in the mirror. And sometimes it would be an obsidian mirror, depending on the culture. But they would have the obsidian mirror, because obsidian mirror has a lot of cultural reference and context. And they would also navigate the stars and stuff with it. But you look at the obsidian mirror and then you notice the shapes. And sometimes what they would also do is they would take smoke or incense, and they would have it in between them and the mirror. And they have the smoke and the incense. And then you see different shapes. And if, depending on your ability, you can see the spirit world. This is a way you connect to the spirit world. But of course, you have to first know how to cleanse your room, how to protect yourself, and what you're working with, right? Because when you do anything spiritual, that's the first step, is cleanse and protect. And then you can go in safely. But just to begin with, you could try the blindfold exercise and see how you navigate through certain situations when you're in the dark. The clairvoyance has to be activated through the darkness when we want to activate that sense. The next ability is clairaudience, which is clear hearing. And so when you hear words, sounds, music is a big one. Sometimes you might have a song pop in, and that's a message. That's something that's, being communicated with you, and you have to listen to the lyrics and to what the meaning is. But a lot of times people, will hear songs, or even I remember high-pitched ringings, or like tuning fork sounds, a lot of different ways that the spirits connect through sound. And then when you have clairaudience, it's like that ability to hear things that other people won't hear. And how you know that you have that ability is you'll be like, did you hear that? And people are like, no, I didn't hear anything. It's the same thing with clairvoyance, because with clairvoyance, you'll be like, did you see that? And people are like, what? I didn't see anything. And some people, if you see spirits or different apparatus, it might come as shadows or light beams or things. And other people will be like, I don't know what that is. I didn't see that. Did you see that? And it's because you're seeing something beyond what others are seeing, because it's a gift. But most of the time when people see kind of shadows or things and they're not used to it, it'll freak you out. Be like, whoa, what is that? I don't want to look at that. Yeah, that's the one for you, the clairaudience. The clairaudience. So I think a lot of people, if you're clairaudient, you're going to be naturally really good with music and sounds and hearing things. And then on the opposite end, if that one is blocked, sometimes the sound goes, like you can't hear well and all that stuff. And then when it activates, you hear better. And especially if you're avoiding your clairaudience, then either it'll get louder or softer. Sweet Pea says, is it a clear mirror or a black mirror? You can use either one. If you have an obsidian mirror, then, that's good. But you can also use just a regular mirror, whatever you have. Don't like go out of your way to get anything unless you want to. But yeah, good question. You're channeling light language. That's good. That's like the hearing, right? You're hearing and then you're bringing it through. So with the clairaudience, it's the same thing as you want to block that sense. You can paint the black. You can paint the mirror black. I've seen some people, they paint it with fingernail polish. You can do this too. You can go buy like a cheap frame from the dollar store or something, and then you could paint the mirror black. You could paint it with like a kind of a translucent. That's why I think they use the nail polish, because it's not too dark, and you can just paint the mirror black if you don't have a black mirror, if you want to use a black mirror. Oh, yeah, if you're gonna good point there, Nicole. If you're gonna work with the mirror though, you want to first cleanse it. Okay, you want to first cleanse it, and the way you cleanse it is through sage or copal or salt, or some people bury their sacred objects, but you want to do a cleansing. You could use holy water. You could use whatever you have that's powerful and that can cleanse. The next thing is you always want to close the mirror when you're done. And you say, thank you. I'm now closing this portal. I'm now closing this door. And the way you do that is by putting an X like that, like just with your arms like that. You can also do this technique when you're in your house. Say you're feeling a lot of spiritual presence, a lot of spiritual activity, or you're in a neighborhood where there's a lot of crime or things happening outside that you want not to come into your home. Do that to your windows. Go to every window and say, I now close these portals. I now close these doorways. Everything in my home is safe and protected. You just want everything, in your place to be, protected. You don't hear music, but lyrics will pop in your head and be on a loop sometimes and at certain parts of the songs. Yeah, it's very common. And so pay attention to what the song lyrics are, what they're saying, and how they relate to you and possibly somebody in your life. You're welcome. So protection, I think I'm going to do a live one day just on protection and the different ways you could do spiritual protection. But that's a good point. Thank you, Nicole, is how to close it. Because when you're working with a mirror or any kind of object that connects to the spirit world, you have to open it and you have to close it. Don't leave those doorways open. Even when you're doing meditation work, healing work, anything that involves sending energy away, extraction work, you always want to close those doors, because when you don't close the door, you can have openings of things coming in and out. And I always tell people, especially when you're doing house cleansings, and by house cleansing, I mean spiritual cleansings, when you're cleaning your house spiritually or other people's house spiritually, you always want to make sure to shake all that energy off of you and leave. And then also you want to make sure you close any and all doorways that you may have been working in and through. And that becomes more prevalent when you're working with like extraction work or, removing spirits from places, sending them home. Hello, Jamie. It's been a while. Yeah, don't forget to shake. How are you today, Jamie? All right, so today we're talking about tools, we're talking about intuition, we're talking about what these clair abilities are. And ways to heighten your intuition. And the reason that I feel this is very important for this time that we're living in is because the ancestors said that the people who survive these shifts that we're going through right now are the people who follow their intuition. We also call that following your heart. And there's a lot of different petroglyphs on this. There's a lot of different stories about this, teachings, prophecies, all that, talking about the people who follow their intuition are the people who thrive during times of transition and change, like what we're going through right now. And we have to get out of the mindset of, relying on the outside world and now relying on the inside world. Those are the people that will survive. And unfortunately, from the last age that we're living in, we're very programmed to look outside. We want to know, we want to, hear it from the outside world, but we have to first hear it from the inside, and then it will be verified through the outside. So it's a whole shift of consciousness, of thinking, of how we, behave, how we act, because everything on the outside is chaotic. And because it's all chaotic, there's nothing you can really trust or really grab onto. You have to grab onto the inside. You're good, Jamie? Good. I'm doing good. Okay. Let's see here. Let's see. Sweet Pea says, I do have the high-pitched sound sometimes in one of the ears, and I've read it's either a warning or something else, but whenever I say I don't understand the frequency, then it stops. Instead of saying I don't understand the frequency, ask your spirit, ask your higher guide, why? Why am I hearing this noise? What is going on that I need to pay attention to? Pay attention to, is it the left side, is it the right side? Left is receiving, right is giving. So think about that. And instead of asking, I don't understand, ask, what's the message? What message? And stop and look at your surroundings and what is going on and pay attention. Because that sound, like I always say, the sound is like a ringing, and it's telling you something. It's telling you to take notice. It's telling you to pay attention. It's telling you to tune in to see what's going on. Come to Bed Eye says, I would love to know how to cleanse, protect and close spiritually. I would watch and rewatch a video on that. Okay, I'll do that video. And I think I do have some stuff. There's different ways. You can use a candle. You can use salt. You can use sage. You can use sweetgrass. You can do a lot of stuff. And there's different techniques. But I would start with, closing all your windows. And certain crystals too. One day I'll talk about my crystal experiences, but certain crystals also you need to close energies on. You have constant high-pitched noise in both your ears. The first thing I always say about the ringing in the ears is you have to first check your mineral levels and make sure your body is in balance, because a lot of times some of that high-pitched ringing is also caused by nutritional deficiencies and also mineral things. Could be a shortage in your body. So that's the first thing you want to check. The second thing you want to check is if you are in and around technology, 5G towers, like your modem is right next to you or something like that. Because sometimes technology has a lot of effects on our equilibrium system and our ears in particular. And that tinnitus is actually connected to a part in our brain. And so there's also tapping exercises. Like if tinnitus gets really bad, for some people it's very bad, it's debilitating. And you can tap the back of your head and it will go away. So it just depends on the severity of the tinnitus and also what's going on. It can also be a spiritual thing. It can be a spiritual message. It can be connected to clairaudience. So that tinnitus has a lot of different meanings. So the first thing you have to figure out is if you have a nutritional deficiency, and you would know that because when you get tested and you start taking those minerals, then the ringing would go away. Now, if you do the mineral supplements and all that, and it still doesn't go away, you're not near 5G technology, and you're still having these issues, then now you have to start working with your clairaudience. You have to start understanding your gift and what the messages are and how spirit connects to you. And think of like the ringing in your ears, kind of like when you get those truth bumps. Like if somebody said something to you and you get those goosebumps, those are truth bumps. And that's how spirit connects, is like it lights up your skin. It's the same thing sometimes with that tinnitus. If somebody will say something and then something will go off in your ears. I've also had people tell me, when you said that message to me, one of my ears just went deaf. And that's also a way spirit grabs your attention. It's through the ears. So when you have clairaudience, sometimes spirit will grab your attention through your ears or through your skin, depending on your gift and your ability. Does that make sense? Let's see. I've started saying recently, what are you trying to tell me? But it stops. Yeah, that can happen too. But keep asking and start noticing. This is where you have to start noticing, what is happening when my ears are ringing? What is going on? You have to really start paying attention and write it down. But notice those other things I was talking about and see if there's any nutritional deficiencies and or 5G or a lot of technology you're bombarding yourself with. And if you are, then you want to start working with shungai. You want to start working with more spiritual protection. And, they have a lot of different technology, even now with clothes, that minimizes those rays, those ELF waves, that, the microwave effect. Because the thing, this is Peaky Bee's back with this. She's purring. So, the purring. All right. So is there any questions on the ringing, the clairaudience? So the way you can boost your clairaudience is actually to walk with some earplugs. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but you walk with some earplugs and then you see, what your sense of smell is, your sense of seeing is, your sense, all the other senses, sense of taste, and notice how those senses are compared to then your sense of hearing, and then add in the hearing later. Like take the earplugs off and then see how is your world different without the sense of hearing. And clairaudience is kind of a strange one, because the way that the spirit world will speak when you're clairaudient is a lot of times you'll just hear something. You'll hear something. And like I said earlier, you'll hear something that other people won't hear. And when you have clairaudience, your spirit and spirit team, your spirit guides speak to you through your ear. So you always have to be paying attention to your ears. And most of the time, the thing about the clair abilities is that we all have them. We have each one of these that I'm talking about. It's just usually one or more is stronger. Because I always hear psychics say, well, I have all clair abilities. And it's like, yeah, everybody does. I'm sorry. It's just some of us have them more, right? And then you can work on building and developing these clair abilities. These are not something only reserved for a select few people. Everybody does. You have recently been feeling a cool breeze, like someone did a light blow on my cheek when I was laying on my back in bed a few times. Yeah, it's kind of it. You will feel sensations. You will hear things. You will feel things more through the ears. When spirit is communicating through the ear, then that's it. Another thing is that sometimes we have one or more senses blocked. And that's why we're not really fully experiencing these abilities, and that could come from childhood or something else, somehow, some way, shape, and form we're blocked. And then these exercises will help you unblock them. Is it also clairaudience if you hear something when you're asleep but not dreaming? Yeah, that's clairaudience. I've heard mom, but my daughter was asleep. Mhm. That's what I'm saying. You will hear things that nobody else will hear. Say you were in bed with somebody and you heard mom and they didn't hear it. Then you would know for sure. If you are alone, it's kind of harder to know, but it seems like more happened when I was young, and somehow now that I'm older, it's fading. Yeah, that's very common, Jamie. Very, very common. Is clairaudience related to schizophrenia? No. Schizophrenia is something different. And schizophrenia, there's two possibilities with schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is obviously a mental disorder, but it can also be a spiritual disorder. Hi, Sonia. How are you? So if it's a spiritual disorder, how we would know is when we do a clearing on the person. So like I've worked with a lot of schizophrenic people in my practice, and the first thing I do with them is I start to diagnose them through hearing their life story. And then I do a spiritual diagnosis and a clearing on them. And when I do the clearing on them, I can tell if this is related to attachments that are spiritual through trauma, or if this is a spiritual calling. So some people who suffer through schizophrenia are actually spiritual healers, but you have to know and diagnose and evaluate that in the proper way to know which is which. And that's what shamans do, is we have to understand it. Because a lot of people who have shamanic callings will be diagnosed as schizophrenic or other mental disorders. But when we do the clearing on them, that all goes away. The voices, the things, all that stuff, the delusions, it all goes away. And then their spiritual gifts come on board. You've had a rough week. I'm sorry. We were just talking about how the energy is so fiery right now. So we're cooling it down. Cool, spiritual water. So yeah, that's a good question though, because I get that a lot about the schizophrenia. It's happened a while older, but not in years. I am still psychic though, just haven't seen spirits a while. Yeah. And when the doorway is ready to open, it'll open, and you can choose to, do it slowly, one step at a time. These senses don't ever really go away. What happens is they just get mild, or they're kind of blocked up, and you kind of feel that way. A lot of times people tell me, oh, I used to see things so clearly. I used to hear things so clearly, and then all that went away, and I really miss it, and I wish it would come back. And then we start opening, these doorways, and we start activating them, and they all come back. They come back, but they come back in a different way. And they come back in a way that, you can control them. You can live a normal, healthy life while having your natural abilities. And not everybody is meant to be, doing something with this. Not everybody's meant to be doing readings or healings or any of that stuff. If you, have the calling and your gift is going in that direction, but everybody can use this in their daily life to navigate and have a healthy, happy life. The energy is very intense. I went outside and I just felt so unfortunately sick. I know it's an intense energy we're headed into. It's going to be a very transformational summer. And remember, when you're feeling that way, go to the water. Maybe next time I'll do a water blessing, but get some water, get a bowl, get some water, and speak all your problems to the water. We were talking about the water last time. Speak all your problems to the water, and then go outside and release your problems. Okay, so do that for this week. because the water is going to heal you. Saying. And then you know what you do with the water too is you cleanse yourself. Pat yourself down and cleanse yourself. Okay. So when I was younger, I used to hear my name whispered like my mom was calling me, but she would always say, I didn't call you, but she'd say, don't answer whatever's calling you. Yeah. That's one way, our gifts start turning down is because our parents say, don't listen to that. Don't do that. That's evil. That's wrong. That's against our religion. That's, we don't talk about that stuff. Don't talk about it. Okay. And unfortunately, that stuff starts to just get shoved down. Shoved down, shoved down, shoved down, shoved down. Yeah. Oh my God. Parents for real. Yes. Hey, Rachel. Yeah. Parents shove it down, shove it down, shove it down. And then later as an adult, we're like, man, where'd all that stuff go? It's there. It's just shoved down. Recently, twice so far, I was laying in bed and watching something on my phone. Then I heard clearly two people talking. I was like, oh, whoa, that's crazy. That is crazy. Yeah. Hi. Yeah. That's the thing. We have to start normalizing these things. But when they become problematic is when spirits and voices and things like that start ruling our life or start telling us to do bad things. That's something different. That's not intuition. That's what we clear out of people because that's what the attachments are, traumas are, delusional thinking is. I started going to the river and throw in a rock to release problems people tell me about. That's exactly great, Kelly. You can do that too. I used to do that with the rocks, and I used to do rock blessings, like where you bless a rock and then you throw it into the river or wherever. We still do that. I do that with shells now. But any which way you can to release, get rid of, because like we were talking about earlier, when you start shoving things down, they don't go anywhere. They go in your body. And then they start festering inside of you. And then they can become cancer and other illness and disease, mental disorders, all this stuff. I bought a small fountain to have by my bedside because the sound helps me sleep. Yeah, that's a really great idea. I always recommend having some kind of sound of water in your home because it also brings in abundance and prosperity too. That's a really good idea with the rock shells. Yeah. It is. It's a good way to release, but it's also a good way to bless. You've been sick for a week, Kim. Finally getting better. Oh, geez. I guess it was a rough week for a lot of us, huh? Yeah. It's this energy of July and the heat and time to get a fish tank. Oh yeah, fish tank is also nice. And we're talking about the water. So maybe next time we'll do more water stuff. You have been wanting one. All right. So there's clairvoyance, there's clairaudience. The next one I want to talk about is clairgustance, which is the sense of taste. The sense of taste. And how does spirit connect and communicate with people through the taste buds? And, I guess one of the ways would be like outside of eating, you suddenly, have a taste. Have you ever had that? Has anybody had that happen? Or, I don't know, I do readings. So sometimes I'll be sitting with somebody and I'll taste something and I'll be like, there's a spirit that likes this taste. And then they'll say, oh, that sounds like my grandma. That sounds like my mom or my dad or something. It's like this taste, like apple pie or something like that. Smells. We're going to go into smells, Kelly, but this one is a taste and smell are very closely related, but like there's a taste. And if that's you, then pay attention to that because that means that's how spirits connect to you, is that there's a taste and then it's identifying who or what was connected to that taste. Sometimes when we're working with ancestral healing and like, let's say you had an uncle or an aunt or somebody who liked to drink, and we'll be doing the reading and their presence is with us. And then the person will say, oh, as you're talking about that, I like taste this kind of alcohol, or I taste this kind of cigar, or I taste something. And it's like, oh, okay, that specific relative liked that taste. And then we do an altar for them. I think she was scared of embracing my gift because she could see spirits and it used to scare her, but I've always been interested in spiritual things. Like your mother, yeah. Usually, a lot of times when your parents are very against spirituality and very against these gifts, they will do everything possible to not let you have them. They'll do everything possible because they don't want that. They don't want it within themselves, and they definitely don't want it within their children. I felt like I was sort of intruding in their conversation because I could hear them, but it was short, and got up and looked outside to see if someone was outside talking. But nope. Do you think pregnancy cravings are a form of that? I think pregnancy cravings are from that child. There's like something that happens in the womb, and these, and a lot of times with that, like say for instance, there's two tastes that the person will be craving: pickles, which is like a sour taste, and then chocolate. Some people like pickles and chocolate, and you're like, what in the world is going on, right? As a pregnancy craving, and usually are very odd cravings. There's some kind of merging happening in the tastes. It could also be spiritual. I don't know. I've never really thought about that. But I think what it is it's something going on that's crossing the mother and the child. And because you notice that once you have that child, that all goes away. You don't usually crave chocolate and pickles unless that, unless you're kind of odd that way. I haven't had the taste one yet, only the craving for certain foods or drinks. Yeah, we'll talk about cravings another day, but I feel like there's something that's going on with the synergy between the mother and the child, and those senses and those tastes, and also nutritional wise, nutritionally, something's going on. There's another level of it that I don't want to go too far into with the pregnancy things, but it's a spiritual, like spirits that are, either ancestral and or benevolent, or sometimes not benevolent, that's also going on. The thing about that is that when someone is pregnant, there's so many levels going on: mental, physical, emotional, psychological, and then spiritual. It's all happening at a very heightened, in the ancient times when women were pregnant, you had to be really careful about where you went, who you were around, what you did. And like in the Korean culture, it's 100 days after the baby is born where you're like super careful of everything that child is exposed to. And there's a very long period of time where you don't actually take your child out. Like now in modern days, I see people, pushing their babies around right after the hospital and showing them this, that, and the other. But in ancient times, and still to this day, a lot of cultures, they're very protective of their babies because they don't want their baby exposed to too many people and too many spirits. It's a spiritual thing because they believe like if your baby is exposed to the wrong people who have the wrong spirits on them, that then they can get that spiritual illness because they're so fresh in the world and their energy is so open and pure. So it's a spiritual thing. There's a lot of spiritual things around pregnancy and what you should and shouldn't do that protect the baby spiritually. It's like that in India too. Yeah, of course. It's an ancient cultural thing. It's found across the globe of how, the etiquette around being pregnant, where you go, what you do, who you expose your child to, what you eat. It's kind of unfortunate in this day and time. A lot of mothers don't have that time, and they don't have that, support to be able to not work and meditate and pray and really focus on that. But, the more careful you are when you're pregnant or after pregnancy, the better, just to be safe. There were even certain herbs and stuff they would put outside their home for protection, specifically juniper and pine. So, okay, so with the sense of taste, try eating different foods: bitter, sweet, sour, salty, fermented. And when you're eating these different foods, you're going to focus and concentrate on the memories, the feelings, emotions, and senses that awaken with each taste. And when you have clairgustance, like if you have that as a really strong clair ability, you have to get really familiar with the different tastes, those, bitter versus sweet, this versus salty versus sour, fermented, because those tastes are the way that the spirit world connects to you and communicates to you. And if you're in or around different people, you may taste certain tastes. It's not a most prevalent one. Like most people don't have that as very prevalent, but I would say, like, if you have that as an ability, you'd be an excellent chef or wine taster or anything that involves tasting, like a food critic. There's people who are very good at, tasting those little nuances in food, because that's their heightened sense. It's a physical thing, and then it's a spiritual thing. All these senses, like I said, are connected to your fingers, the 5 senses that you see, and then the 5 senses that you don't see. And there are more senses that we have, but these are the most common ones. Okay, so that's the clairgustance. The next one is what we've already been talking about, where you were saying the sense of smell, which is clairaudience. So the sense of smell is that, certain smells will come to you. This is the one I call dog nose. If you haven't seen my TikTok video about dog nose and you have this, you'll get it. But, like my mom always would call me dog nose. Oh, your dog nose. Dog nose people drive everybody crazy. Is there a placement? I'm not sure what you mean, Nicole. A placement, is there a placement on each fingers, and can you tell by the handwriting? Some people can do the hand reading. I have a friend who actually reads the top of your hands, not the bottom of your hands, and she could probably talk more about that stuff, but there's not like, a specific order or anything like that. They do have something like that in hand reading where they say, this finger is related to this planet and this, that, and the other. But in our teachings, it's just you have 5 fingers and you have 5 spaces in between them. And those spaces are where these abilities lie. So everything in the physical world has a spiritual connection. That's the basic teaching, that's why we do ceremonies. That's why we do clearings. That's why we do healings. That's why we do all these ancient rituals and things, is because everything connected to the physical world is also connected to the spiritual world. My grandmother came to visit me. Her perfume came to me out of nowhere. That's exactly right. That's what most people will say is this smell. What is that smell? My husband's fear heightens, laugh out loud. He goes, I don't smell it. Is it bad? Yeah, exactly. That's when you have dog nose, is when you smell things that other people don't smell. And not only do you smell them, but you smell them like a dog. Everywhere they go, they're smelling stuff, and they can smell like, I think something like 100 times more, maybe 1,000 times more, but they can smell 100 dogs that have peed on a tree, and that's why they pee on the tree, because they got to add to the scent. But you know how dogs like go smelling everything and then they want to pee on it. When we have the dog nose, clairaudience, we just smell things. That's how spirit is connecting. A lot of times where our clairaudience is blocked, what will happen is that we'll have sinus issues, blockages here, allergies, something's going on here. And that's why in India, they do those neti pots, they clean out this area because it's all connected. It's all connected, and there's pollen and all that stuff that irritates it. But when you have a very sensitive nose, you're going to be prone to more nasal congestion. Perfume is the best. I smelled my grandmother's biscuits before too. Oh, yeah. Yeah, grandmother's biscuits, a certain food, and how you'll know it's a spiritual connection is because you'll be with somebody or, you'll be in a room and you'll say exactly that. What's that smell? Why does it smell like that? Oh, and people around you will be like, what smell? I don't smell anything. I don't smell anything. If it's a rotten, gross smell, then it might be connected to like underworld spirits. But if it's like a sweet something smell, it might be different. They say that the upper worlds, the celestial worlds, they smell like jasmine. Sometimes people smell gardenia, but they smell very floral. Even when you're around certain spiritual teachers and gurus, they smell like that. They smell like a jasmine flower. They smell like a gardenia. They smell very fragrant. And that's part of their enlightenment. Yeah, he loved jasmine, me too. So a lot of times when we're doing ceremonies and stuff, we'll invite those celestial beings, those celestial realms, and we'll invite that smell of jasmine in. And, people will smell it and they'll be, oh, what's that smell? It smells so good. That's what you want to hear. It smells so good. You don't want to be like, ooh, it smells so rotten. Like if you go to a bar or a dingy place and you're like, oh, what's that smell? It's a smell. It's a spiritual smell. And spirits of the underworld smell pungent or rotten or like a sulfur. That's another one. People say, ooh, it smells like sulfur or dead fish or something like that. That's the underworld. That's a like either a hungry ghost or some kind of, quote unquote demon or vampire or something that is in the air that's not positive. And that's how you would know. I would rather smell jasmine than sulfur. Yes. Outside of going to a natural hot springs or somewhere that should smell like sulfur, when you smell sulfur, like at your house or somebody else's house or a bar usually or somewhere, that there's some kind of rotting spirit. It's not a good spirit. And you got to pour on that jasmine. Just kidding. Just pour it all over. Carry it around with you. Now we know why grandma's perfume was so strong. You ever had that grandma who had that really strong rose perfume or that really strong floral? She knew something. Grandma knew something. IKEA has a really nice jasmine candle that actually smells like the fire. Oh, that's good. So if you're looking for jasmine, go to IKEA. Which, is funny. I've never been to that store, but everybody I know loves that store. I have to go one day. All right. So that is dog nose. And so to activate dog nose, this is one of the exercises that I have, is that you're going to put a smell, like each smell. Don't go, it's a maze. Okay, I won't go. But you're going to put four smells in a bag. And preferably like not your strong perfume or something like that, but like herbs, something subtle that's sweet, bitter, sour, salty. And you're going to put them each in a bag, brown bag that you can't identify. And if you have somebody who can mix them around when you're not there and put them in a line, and then you're going to use your sense. And they have to be like not so strong where you can smell them really strongly, right? And you're going to go to each bag and see like how strong is your sense of smell. Can you identify the different smells? And, what is the feeling and the energies around this, smell? And then obviously open the bag and look and see how correct you are, and keep doing it until you feel really strong with that sense, and keep building your nose power. Because, the thing about clairaudience is that clairaudience can literally save your life. It really could literally save your life, because you will smell something on somebody. You will smell a situation that's not right. You will smell something. And if you trust that sense of smell, then you won't go back on the wrong path. You will go straight. You will go right. Because a lot of times people say, man, I just smelled that situation. I smelled it. It's funny how, and unfortunately in our day and age, everybody's trying to cover their smell. So a lot of times you got to rely on other things, but people put perfume all over them when they really smell like sulfur. You know what I'm saying? I had a whole ceremony on that, and the directions we went in that ceremony were eye-opening. I'll never forget that, because I learned that how powerful that sense of smell can be. That sense of smell, and I don't mean just the smelling part of it, but the sense behind it, the feeling. You know how you just can sense that situation doesn't smell right, that person doesn't smell right. There's something that just doesn't smell right. It can literally save your life. You need a prayer? All right, Sonia, I'll add you to my prayer list. Definitely praying for all of you. And if you need extra prayers, just let me know. Sorry, but I am needing to sleep. Okay, Kim, good night. We're almost done here. All right, the last sense, so we're wrapping it up, is clairsentience. That's the last one I'm going to talk about. And the clairsentience is your classic empath. And when I say that, I notice that people here get really offended. I don't know why, because that's what it is. Except for, we have all these other things that have now become empath. But empath is your sense of knowing. Clairsentience is your sense of knowing. And a lot of times these senses actually are triggered by trauma. That's why I talk a lot about trauma healing, is because a lot of these senses are heightened when we're in traumatic states. And as children, if we had to live in traumatic states, then these senses get heightened, because this is how you survive. The problem is that it can also be riddled with anxiety, and then our senses get dulled because of anxiety. And then, we're untrusting, and we're overly emotional, we're overly sensitive, and it all gets tangled up, right? There's an empaths are narcissist trend on TikTok. That might be. I don't know. I know I got yelled at before on TikTok about, talking about this stuff. It's okay. But it's because, I kind of can understand that empaths are narcissists, because of the way that the new age has made it, unfortunately, is that, see, here in Western society, because a lot of these concepts are really new, that's why it's called new age, but actually these are ancient, but they're coming in a new way. And the problem with that is that they're not coming into the full breadth of what the ancients understood. They're coming in bits and pieces and all mixed up and mixed around. And so, there's these terms that have emerged that are a bit narcissistic, like I'm a light worker, I'm a star seed, and why they're narcissistic is because you're better than, or you're somehow special, or you're more advanced, or you're more high frequency, or, you're putting yourself in a position of better than, right? Which is not the case. See, like in Korean culture, when you're called to be a shaman, it's like highly frowned upon. Everybody in the family is like, oh no, no, it's awful, it's horrible. And even the person struggles for many years usually to come into understanding of who they are and why they were, chosen and all that stuff. And so it's never like a spiritually elite thing. So there would be like no narcissistic anything attached to it because it's not, something highly prized. But somehow in this modern day, in this Western culture, these natural gifts and these things that are natural and more natural for some people and a calling for others have become like a way to say you're better than somebody else, or you're more advanced, or you're higher frequency, or you're that, which is not the case. I mean, it could be the case, I don't know. But in true, teachings and the true shamanic ways is like, you have to be humble. So you would never say something like that. You would never say I'm better than, or I'm a high frequency, or I'm this, or I'm that. And a lot of times, like I've talked about before, all my mentors and medicine people, they never identified themselves as a medicine person. Most of the times what they would say is I'm a farmer, or I work with this, or, and you'd have to kind of dig it out of people, and it was just kind of known in certain circles and things because they wanted to stay humble to the earth. Humble also doesn't mean you're lower than either. It means that you're balanced, you're grounded, you're in harmony, and you're here to serve. And that was like the whole purpose of being called to be a healer or a medicine person, is to serve the people. It's not to say you're better than or worse than or lower or higher or none of that stuff. It's just that that's what you do in the world. That's your calling. That's your mission. That's your purpose. So, okay, that was a sidetrack. Going back to the topic, clairsentience is just your ability to feel. And, traumatic childhoods, this sense gets very heightened. And then as adults, we really have to, oh, that was weird. Sorry, YouTube, something glitched. But when we have clairsentience, when we're an empath, we just have to balance what is my energy versus what is their energy or your energy. And it can be a debilitating sense, actually. It can actually be very debilitating when you're too sensitive and you're too clairsentient, because then you're just feeling everything around you. And like I've talked about before with clairsentience, is that clairsentience, when people have clairsentience and they're really strong and they're really good, it's a very powerful gift, because when you know how to use it right, what you can actually do is you can feel into people's energy and vibration. And if you know how to do it, you can transform their energy. You can feel their pain, you can remove the pain, and you can shift it, because your energy vibration is like meant to do that. It's meant to. The problem is that most clairsentients just feel everything, and then they take it on, and then they hate the world. And then they're like, oh, the world sucks, da 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 da. And it's because they're not using their gift in the power that it is. They're using it in the weakness, as a weakness and not a power. And that's why I say if every empath was in their power, the world would change, because empaths have very strong energy fields and they have the ability to shift the energy wherever they go. Hello from Minnesota. Love your talk. Oh, thank you so much. I wanted to do that for someone so bad on Friday. Turn off pain. Laugh out loud. Hate the world 100%. Okay, we're not. You're not alone. Because it's true. Because when you're an empath and like everybody around you negative, you're going to feel all negative. And then you're going to be like, oh, I need to take a shower. And it's really hard to shift that. And a lot of times you don't shift it through what you say or what you do. You actually shift it through silence. You just sit there. Like, okay, Kelly says she wanted to turn off pain. Nothing you say or do is going to turn off anybody's pain. right? But what you could do is just start to build that muscle, that resilience, and sit with them, sit with the pain, and see that you're shifting that pain, that pain. You can, if you're really good, you can locate the pain in the body, and then you can work on shifting it. And then the people will actually say, and how you know you're successful at it is they'll say, wow, that pain went away, or somehow I feel better, or the energy will lighten and you'll feel it. It's something to practice if you're an empath. Hope so. I help my 13-year-old daughter to not feel so much that she is starting to isolate. Yeah. Hi, Danae. Yeah, I know. And especially at 13, she's right at that real sensitive age. What I would, start teaching her is, to recognize the difference between her energy and somebody else's energy. That's like the first thing I would teach her, is be like, okay, empathy. So like, say, just be like, okay, and like do exercises with her and say, okay, is this your energy or is this someone else's energy? And then if it's her energy, then she can learn how to process through those emotions in a healthy way. But then if it's other people's energy, you can start to teach her how to, block those energies and just be like, okay, don't take it on. Just recognize and acknowledge that those energies are there, that those emotions are there, that those feelings are there. But don't think you have to solve the problem, or don't think that you have to do something about it, unless somebody wants her help or something. But in the beginning, as an empath, it's just really important to know, is this even my energy? Because empaths will take it all on. And that's why they don't like people. Let the person reflect, be the mirror, not the person that absorbs all that feels. Yes, exactly. Activism. And that's really hard. Yes. What can I tell her to help with discerning hers from others? This is where being really in tune with her feelings and her body. So helping her just, okay, daughter, take a breath and let's feel. Is this, where do you feel this in your body? And teaching her breathing exercises. This is the thing, every 13-year-old empath, if we all learned this stuff at 13, how different our life would be, right? Because if we learned how to stop and breathe and recognize in that moment, is this my energy or is this somebody else's energy? And just let that feeling pass. We don't absorb anything. We don't absorb it all. Oh, the cat. This is Peaky B. She's our 15-year-old elder around here. And she's purring. When doing readings, I would feel stuff and then have to step back and release with the help of quartz. Oh, okay. Yeah, quartz can help too. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so true. Yeah, I know. So true, right? If we all knew these things when we were 13, what an amazing, respect the elders. Yeah, she actually commands that respect. She makes sure everybody respects her. She just came back from outside, so she's purring. Yeah. This cat has sat through, I don't know, maybe hundreds of ceremonies and has met thousands of clients and traveled the world. So she has seen it all and done it all. But yeah, so clairsentience, empathy, being an empath, those are all things that when we have them, we have to learn boundaries. When you're an empath, the most powerful thing you have to learn is boundaries. Boundaries with yourself, boundaries with the spirit world, boundaries with everything. Because when you don't have boundaries and you're an empath, everything and everyone will walk all over you. And that's the life lesson of an empath, is when you step out of the woundedness of your gift and into the empowerment of your gift, everything will change. Everything will change. I have gotten tingles or my third eyes a few times recently. Oh, good. That's good. Things are opening and awakening. Now, start opening that more. But also remember, when you don't want too much going on, you close it. close it. Love that super cat. Yeah, she's awesome. She's super feisty too. She got attitude. She's got catitude. All right, everybody. Well, I think that's where I'm going to end our live today. But thank you so much for joining in today. I'll be back next Monday. And if you'd like to schedule a reading or spiritual training session, you can check out the link in my bio. Until we meet again, many blessings. You're welcome.